Going to throw the car in sport mode, give it a light acceleration, not going to do anything crazy, but just give you guys an idea of the sound and the performance. We'll grab a downshift. Does it feel significantly different than the 2023? What's going on, everybody? Ronnie here with BMW of Morristown for a little different style of video today with the 2024 BMW X5. So in today's video, we are going to be doing a little POV drive with the X5 to show you all what it's like to drive the new 2024 X5. So if you missed our last upload on the X5, BMW has given the X5 an LCI, or a mid-cycle refresh for the 2024 model year. So we'll link to that video where we go over all of the changes and do a full in-depth walk around and tour with the 2024 X5. Go check that out if you want some in-depth info on the 24 X5. But in this video, we're just going to be focusing on the driving experience, primarily the difference in the 24 to the 23, if any, and just give you guys an idea of what it's like to sit in the driver's seat and spend some time behind the wheel of the 2024 X5. So with that said, let's engage our hands-free POV mode and go for a drive. We are off in the 2024 X5. So I have spent quite a bit of seat time in 2023 X5 models, those pre-LCIs from 2018 to 2023, doing exchanges with other dealerships, dropping cars off at clients' houses, things like that. So I've driven the 23 X5s quite a bit beyond even just, putting around our parking lot. This is the first time I've driven a 2024 model, so we will see what differences there are, if any, as far as driving goes. Now, of course, you're seeing the big difference right away with the cockpit. That is this iDrive8 infotainment system. Otherwise, the interior is relatively the same as a 2023. We do have that different shift lever down there and a redesigned dashboard, but iDrive8 is the headline difference for 2024 model X5. So the one thing that you notice immediately when you're driving X5s, or the 2024 X5, is something that you'll notice when you drive all X5s, that is that the seating position is really, really nice. So both armrests fall at the exact same height. The steering wheel is really nice and centered, so that center line of the BMW Roundel lines up right with the center line of your chest. So the ergonomics are really, really good. So one thing that I'm noticing, and this is true of pre-LCI X5s as well, but the inputs, specifically the steering as we make some small turns around town here, is really, really smooth. So this was true of pre-LCIs, like I said, but the X5 definitely feels like it's tuned to be a luxurious vehicle to drive, a very comfortable car to drive every day. And if you've ever had time in an X3, me saying that the X5 is much more comfortable and luxury-oriented as far as the inputs go, specifically the steering, should give you an idea of what I mean. So it's the same difference from 3 Series to 5 Series. If you get in a 3 Series and then you immediately get into a 5 Series, you'll notice that the 5 Series drives much smoother. It's a lot more tuned for luxury and comfort, whereas the 3 Series is tuned to be a bit sportier. Same difference is true with X3 to X5. So the X3 feels a little bit tighter, feels a little bit more sporty as far as the driving dynamics go, and the X5 sort of dials that back in favor of comfort and luxury. As far as ride quality goes, this part of our test drive route, as you'll see in a moment, is really nice for assessing the ride quality of the car. It's probably, it's one of the reasons why this road is on our test drive route, because it's really bumpy, and it gives clients a good idea of how the car will ride to make sure it suits their preferences. The X5 straddles the line between being dampened like a sporty car and being dampened like a luxury car really, really nicely. So it does ride relatively soft. It doesn't crash or have any harshness over bumps. It is definitely tuned, like I said, just like the steering is, to be a bit more luxurious, and you get that in the ride quality as well. It soaks up bumps really nicely. The chassis remains composed over bumps and imperfections in the pavement, so it rides nicely. But when you decide to toss it into a corner a little bit more aggressively, it will comply. It'll play along with you if you would like it to. you can definitely have some fun with the car. It's not so luxury like the 7 Series, where the 7 Series is tuned almost exclusively on that spectrum from comfort to performance towards comfort. The X5 is a little bit further towards the middle. The chassis and the suspension is tuned in such a way that you can still have fun with it if that's what you want to do. You can throw it into a corner, you can drive a little bit more aggressively and still get some respectable performance and composure out of the car. It's dampened stiff enough to make body roll relatively limited. That's more in the springs than the dampers, but the springs are tuned in such a way to make body roll, like I said, pretty limited. It's not a big lumbering SUV like we were used to in the early 2000s. Anything that was an SUV would have, those rollover warnings even on the sun visor. Not anymore. The X5 is really composed in corners. It remains relatively flat even for its size, its height, its higher center of gravity being an SUV. It does not suffer from a lot of the detriments that older SUVs had. So that is to say that it drives a little bit like a car. It is a little bit more car-like in its driving experience than SUVs of old, even just one generation ago. Not necessarily the pre-LCI X5, but certainly the generation before that and generations that preceded that F-chassis X5. So this is a nice little highway on-ramp here. I'm going to throw the car in sport mode, give it a light acceleration, not going to do anything crazy, but just give you guys an idea of the sound and the performance. We'll grab a downshift, paddle shift at about 4,000 RPMs. So that was about half throttle, revving it, not even close to all the way out. This is going to be a customer's car at one point, so we don't want to do anything too crazy or break any of our local traffic laws. But the X5 picks up really nicely. This is an xDrive40i, so 375 horsepower out of a 3-liter turbocharged inline-6, the B58 that everyone knows and loves. Drives really, really well, performs well, and the X5 does a great job of getting this relatively large SUV up to speed pretty well. It sounds pretty nice. It has a very traditional BMW straight 6 sound to it. It doesn't have the mechanical raspiness of like the S54 or even the N55 was a more recent engine that still had that sort of tone to it. The B58 sort of loses that, sounds a little bit more synthetic, not as mechanical or raspy is what is the term that a lot of people like to use for the older BMW straight 6s, but still sounds nice, still has a very straight 6 noise to it, and as you heard, sounds nice when you're running through the RPMs and accelerating a little bit. We are still in sport mode. We can try that out for a second. Hopefully you guys can see the heads-up display okay there on the screen. That gives us a sort of pseudo tachometer. Throttle response is a little bit stiffer, holds the gears a little longer. You can see it'll let the car engine brake. It won't just immediately go into a coasting mode or a higher gear to let you sort of sail. It will hold the lower gear and you can get some engine braking out of it, which is nice. That sport mode is tuned, to be a little bit more aggressive. It's definitely more aggressive than comfort mode, and that's what you want if you're going through the effort of putting the car in sport mode. You want it to feel sporty. So I'm not going to paddle shift. I'll just lean into the gas a little bit. And you can see I will paddle shift because I don't want to rev it out too high. You can see it picks up really, really nicely. Not very much turbo lag at all. Feels very responsive. So if you want to make a quick pass on the highway, just jabbing your foot in a little bit, it will downshift right away, as you saw, and pick up speed really, really nicely. You can see the car is warning me that we're a little bit low on fuel, but that's okay. The B58 is more than adequate to get this car up and moving perfectly fast. The V8 options are really fun. They sound really cool. They're really powerful, like really throw you back in your seat powerful, but this 6-cylinder is more than enough for the vast majority of folks that are going to be buying an X5. This is a nice little sweeping turn, a highway off-ramp here, and I'm not pushing it very hard at all, well below the limits of the car as we should be on the street. But it feels really nice, feels really composed. The steering's direct. You can point it where you want to go, and it will listen, and it will go, which is really good. No vagueness on center. We can do the not so professional, but telling steering test where you just kind of wiggle the wheel to get a feel for on-center vagueness. There's not very much of it in the X5. Feels nice and direct. So you can see as I make quick movements, the car does actually move with the steering wheel. It feels very connected, which is good. This little section of road here, there's 3 manhole covers in a row right before our dealership. I hit this every day on the way to work. But we can go over those, and you can see in my car, which is a 3 Series, those bumps really toss your head around. In the X5, it soaks those up really nicely. It does a good job of not letting imperfections in the road that the right tires are experiencing translate to the entire body. It sort of isolates the rest of the car from those movements, which is really, really nice. But overall, the X5 is just a really comfortable and usable car to drive every day. It feels really nice to drive. There's no jarring or uncomfortable or jerky movements in either the transmission, the engine, or the suspension. It's all very smooth. It's all very nicely tuned. I hesitate to use the word serene. That's something you usually reserve for like a Rolls Royce, still in the BMW corporate family. But there is a sense of serenity and sort of isolation. You know, as you heard, we were going up to 60 there on the highway for a minute. The wind noise is really limited. There's no intrusive road or tire noise. You see, that's a pretty big bump in a railroad track we hit there. And it doesn't sound crashy or loud or obnoxious over the bumps. It all just works together really nicely as an everyday vehicle. As far as the physical comfort of things like the seats, for example, they are really nice and comfortable. These seats are reasonably plush, much softer. BMW had a problem in the late 2000s and the early 2010s with making their seats too hard. They were just not very comfortable to sit in. That problem has since been solved with even later F chassis cars, but most certainly all of the G chassis cars have adopted much softer and plusher seats, which is really nice. That's an important thing. If you're sitting in the car a lot, you want those seats to be comfortable, and these ones are. We do a quick turn around here. Turning radius is quite good for a full-size or a mid-size, I suppose, in today's market SUV. The X5 feels perfectly maneuverable in parking lots and those tighter areas. The X7 has rear steer to sort of help mitigate that, but the X5 doesn't really need it. It has perfectly reasonable turning radius. So as you can see there, going over those bumps, I've talked quite a bit about the suspension comfort in this little drive, but it's just something that jumps out at me with the X5. It's dampened really nicely. They've done a really nice job tuning the suspension to not totally forego the ability to have fun and to be an athletic car. If you toss it around, it will work, but you can go over those bumps and not be jostled around too aggressively. The car still feels perfectly nice going over the imperfect roads that we find so often here in New Jersey. So just sitting at a red light here, we can see there's traffic going by. The usual happenings of a small road, a local road like this, traffic and whatnot, and the X5 isolates that exterior noise quite nicely. It does a good job of drowning out. As we drive past these cars, you can hear them going by, certainly. I won't say you can't. It's not quite on that level. Like, that's, again, Rolls Royce stuff where you can't hear cars driving by. But the X5 does a nice job of sort of masking their wind noise. You get very little wind noise, like I said, from your own mirrors and whatnot in the car. So that just adds to the sort of nice, comfortable feel of the car. But as we arrive back to our dealership here, we'll give this school bus a right of way here and take some time to go through our final thoughts on the 2024 X5. The big thing I want to talk about, does it feel significantly different than the 2023? I'll start with just the ride quality. No, it feels just the same as the 23 X5. To me, I think it rides, and that's a great thing, by the way. That's a big compliment. It rides just as nicely as the 2023 does. It handles just as nicely as the 2023 does. The engine does feel more potent with that bump in horsepower. You definitely feel that. It does not go unnoticed. Specifically those sort of kick down situations on the highway where you're just going, 50 and you put your foot in it, you give it a little bit of throttle for a pass. This feels, properly quick. It feels like something that actually has some power to it. So that's really nice. The added horsepower is a great benefit. The one thing that I've noticed that is a nice improvement over 2023's is the steering. The 2023's did have a little bit of vagueness on center. If you were going down the highway, you would sometimes have to adjust it a little bit to keep yourself in the lane going straight. Not a problem at all. But the 2024, that's the real thing I noticed, has remedied that. The steering feels a little bit more direct, a little bit easier to control. So that's really nice. The steering precision has definitely been increased. But as far as driving goes, I'd say the two things you'll notice the most if you're coming out of a 23 are that engine, the response, and the power availability in the 2024 40i models is a big improvement. You'll notice that even more if you're coming out of a 45e going to a 50e, you got an even bigger power increase. The steering has definitely been improved. So overall, the X5 is a thoroughly redesigned car for 2024. We have all those nice exterior changes, the new technology and interior, the new engines all around. But the driving experience is also improved in terms of steering and engine, like I said, and all the fantastic things that we liked about the 23 X5 are carried over: the ride quality, the chassis, the playfulness. If you want it, can be a fun car to toss around, or it's just a great everyday cruiser on highways, going to work, taking the kids to school, stuff like that. So this video, by the way, the POV Drive, was a suggestion in the comments from a previous video. So just goes to show that we do take those suggestions into account. So if you would like to see something on the channel, let us know, and it may end up being our next video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this new style of video. Please do let me know in the comments if you did like this style of video. We can try to do more of them in the future. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at BMW of Morristown. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.